Southern Colorado's Rock Alternative 97.7, the Academy, Conman, live and loud. And man, I tell you what, I got such a cool guest this morning. Today, we got a NASA astronaut in here. He's a 98 Academy grad. He spent a lot of time recently on the International Space Station. And what's interesting about my guest is his first launch into space was aborted shortly after takeoff, and the man actually walked away to tell the tale. Ladies and gentlemen, can you believe it? We've got Colonel Nick Hague in here from NASA. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's awesome to be here with you today.
Man, I can't believe you've got any energy left, Nick. I know they've been pulling you apart. You were just talking about it off the air here, the fact that you've gone over to Schriever, you've been to Peterson, you've been here at the Academy. You're really telling the tale.
Up to Buckley, too. Made the whole round trip. Just want to get out to all the space wings in the Space Force and, really just personally thank them for everything they did to support our mission on board the International Space Station.
Yeah, man, and there's so much support, so many man hours, so many people that make those things successful at what they are.
Yep.
One of the big things, obviously, you're here talking about what you've done in the space station, but you're here being awarded for the Jabara Award.
Yeah.
And what a huge accomplishment that is, being an Academy grad and being bestowed this honor. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's cool. It's I got to kind of pinch myself every now and then.
Yeah.
A little shocked to get this kind of recognition. I don't know exactly what I did. I guess I sat on top of a rocket that blew up.
Yeah, right, but you walked away. What was cool about, you're being honored for an extraordinary professionalism and heroism. The fact that you held it together as this thing was coming apart, you guys eject, right, or jettison.
So the capsule just basically, there's some rockets on the very top of the capsule, and it rips us off the rocket as the rocket's kind of tumbling through the air.
Yeah, so you're falling back to Earth in a 7G spin.
Yeah, so that's about it.
So how do you prepare for something like that? Because you're going through a checklist trying to perfect your landing while spinning in 7Gs and reading all this in Russian?
Yeah, so we launched on a Soyuz rocket, so everything's in Russian,
okay.
Even the procedures. So all the radio calls, I spent the better part of the last 7 years trying to master that language. It continues to this day, by the way. So, yeah, what goes through your mind? You don't prepare in that instant, right?
Right.
That preparation started back when I was a cadet at the Academy.
Exactly.
You build a mindset, a lifestyle, a structure to the way you approach problems and a way to rely on teammates and all those core values that you learn at the Academy. You take that through your career, and then I applied that in flight test engineering, and so all those experiences build off each other. That wasn't my first in-flight emergency, right?
Sure.
So when it happens, you just revert back to all that training that you've had before. I revert back to the hours and hours that I spent shoulder to shoulder with Alexei Ovchinin, who was the cosmonaut that was my commander.
Right.
And we knew each other so well at that point that I didn't need to see his face. In fact, you can't see each other's face when you're sitting in that capsule because you're in there so tight. I could hear exactly I knew what he was thinking without him saying it. And in his radio transmissions, based on the inflection in his voice, I know how he's doing.
Yeah.
You know each other that well. That's how you prepare for something like that.
Yeah, and like you said, you just revert back to training. You're constantly doing the same thing. You just go back to you're not thinking about possibly the end of your existence. Did that cross your mind?
Well, the reality is, that the end, if it was going to be the end, would have already happened.
Okay,
right?
okay.
So we're as the abort is happening, and abort's kind of this nebulous term, as the rocket's disintegrating. At that point, we were about 30 miles above the surface of the Earth, and we were going 4,000 miles an hour.
Wow.
And so everything happens fast at that speed. So it was within a quarter second that everything happened. The booster collided, and we were pulled to safety. All in a quarter second.
Oh, man. So I just can't even imagine. So after you've recovered, you're alive, you're on the ground,
Yeah.
you then start preparing for the next launch.
Yeah.
Right? It was just a few months away when you relaunched again.
Yeah, 5 months later, I was strapped into the same type of rocket on the same launch pad, headed to the same station.
But now the stress has got to be twice what it was, right? Are you thinking about the failures early on, not necessarily yours, but the equipment failure? Are you thinking about that?
No, to be honest, no.
Okay.
Every launch has inherent risk to it. And so I approached, my wife. She's active duty military. We approached that first launch the same way we approached the second launch.
Okay.
Um, it's risky business.
Sure.
And so then you get down to the reason, well, why do you take the risk? And
Yeah.
it's because you believe in the mission, right? And so the mission is the human exploration of space. You're up there on the International Space Station. I'm working shoulder to shoulder with astronauts and cosmonauts from across the globe, and we're trying to perform scientific investigations for the betterment of humanity,
You
to
bet.
make life better on the ground, to help us figure out how to explore deeper into space. And so it's a noble mission, and it's worth the risk.
Isn't it amazing how all these nations can work so closely together in the International Space Station, but it seems like with everything else going on, nobody can agree on anything?
Yeah, I mean it's magic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That everything is so complex, but this one common interest in the exploration and discovery, and the potential to impact everybody for the positive pulls us together like that. That's the magic of
You
space.
bet it is. Exciting. You said you weren't even really thinking about it the second time around. Would you consider yourself to be an adrenaline junkie?
No, I mean,
Are you a pretty safe guy
I did-
outside of the cockpit? And
I did jump just down the road. I did my 5 free fall jumps,
Yeah.
and that was enough.
And that was enough. Okay.
That was enough. So I don't go thrill seeking. I don't ride
Okay.
motorcycles.
There we
'cause
go.
In my opinion, they're a little dangerous.
Yeah, right.
So, I manage risk for a living.
Right. Well put, man. So after you finally get up there, you did 2 full missions on the space station, right?
Yeah. So expeditions. So
Expeditions.
Each expedition is really a composition of crew, and so for the last 20 years, we've had somebody living on the space station
Okay.
continually.
Mhm.
And so every 3 months, the way it's set up right now, about every 3 months, 3 people launch, and they replace 3 people that were up there.
Okay.
And so you just have this slow churn of every 3 months, there's a new combination of 6, and we name those expeditions. And so I was up there for Expedition 59 and Expedition 60.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
just to look back now, and what mission are we getting ready to launch into?
Right now, it's Expedition 62 on board.
Wow.
And I've got great friends, Drew Morgan, Jessica Meir, and Oleg Skripochka are up there, and they are, they're having the ride of their life.
I heard on the news just yesterday, one of our NASA astronauts, one of the females, just broke a world record. Is that right?
You betcha. She was my crewmate. So Christina Cook. She
Cook.
launched with us the second time.
Wow.
So the first time it was just a 2-man mission. So they figured they needed to add a rock star to the crew in order to make it successful. So they added Christina. And then she is such a rock star. When we came home, she stayed on. So she was up there for 328 days.
Wow.
The longest mission any woman has ever done. And she came back, and if anybody sees any video of her getting out of the capsule,
saw
she
that.
looks like she wasn't phased at all. So that's
amazing.
That's Christina. She's just awesome.
But seeing her come out of that capsule like you, and coming back from space, I mean, that's a lot for your body to acclimate to, right there.
It is. It is.
I mean, from zero gravity for over a year to all of a sudden, like, man, I need to lose some
Yeah.
weight now.
Yeah,
I
so
need a diet.
they've got the countermeasures in place. We've been doing this for 20 years, right? So we lift weights and we ride the stationary bike and we run on the treadmill for all that.
Yeah.
Physical activity, 2.5 hours a day,
Wow.
every day.
Wow.
So that's
You're keeping up.
You keep yourself strong. You keep your heart and lungs strong. The thing that really is tough is balance, because your inner ear up on
Yeah.
orbit, it's always trying to find down, and without gravity up there to help it find down, your mind just stops listening to it. So when you get back down on the ground, your mind still isn't listening to your inner ear. So
Wow.
as soon as I stood up, I'd start to fall over. It took me about, I'd say, a strong 2 days before I could walk around without somebody, there just in case.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, it's something a lot of us just don't even think about. Certainly the inner ear. What would you say would be better? What do you prefer more, the liftoff or say the reentry? What makes you feel a little more comfortable coming home?
They're two unique experiences,
Sure.
right? And so the psychology of it, the liftoff, you've got this whole mission in front of you and the anticipation of the mission. And so you're so focused on that. And then coming home, the focus is just getting back to your family.
Sure.
And, the mission's behind you. And now it's like, okay, we got this one last step. let's do it. And they're both completely different experiences. I'd say that launching feels like you're in a souped up sports car and you just smash on the gas and never let off.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, after about 8 minutes, you turn off the engine and everything's floating.
And it's smooth sailing, quiet?
It's smooth sailing. It's quiet. It's peaceful. Everything just kind of dances around on its own. It takes on a life of its own. Re-entry is a different thing. That's like being on a tilt-a-whirl at the amusement park. And as you're coming in, you slow down with the atmospheric drag, and so you get down pretty low, and the clouds are zipping by, and you really feel your speed. And then all of a sudden, flaming chunks of your heat shield are flying by the window.
That'd make you nervous.
Absolutely, and you see it going, and then all of a sudden, the windows char over, and then the chute opens up, and you're on the end of the chute, and you're just whipping around, and it's
pretty turbulent.
It's a heck of a ride.
Wow. So what do you miss most about space? You're sitting around at home now in the recliner thinking about, man, I really like that. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, so there's two things. The first one is the obvious one. The view, you can't beat the view.
Sure.
And the impact that perspective has on you. The second one is flying.
Yeah.
7 months, my feet didn't have to touch the ground.
Amazing.
Every time I went to get something out of the pantry and then needed to float across the module to add water to it so that I could eat it, I'd do a backflip.
Yeah.
Why not do a backflip if you can do it?
Yeah.
Or, spin or twist and playing with things, just twirling them in the air. It's amazing.
So I'm dying to know what food you were dying to eat or you were missing the most about being up there eating this powdered food mixed with water. And
Yeah, absolutely. Bread.
really?
Yeah.
The carbs, were you just carbohydrate starved up there?
No, there's plenty of carbs, but there's no fresh bread
I see.
because we don't have a way to bake it. So our bread up there is basically tortillas, lots and lots of tortillas, but just a nice loaf of bread was something that I was after.
Do they, the food that you've got during the duration, is that something that went up with you initially, or is it something that they continue to restock on the space station?
Yeah, so everything is it's like military meals, the military ready to eat.
The
meals.
rations?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
rations. So the MREs. So it's similar in that, and some of it we can rehydrate, some of it's just in packages and you reheat, but all of it's stored and it's shelf stable for months. And so we have this supply up there of about 6 months. And about every month we get a new cargo vehicle that brings up more food, more science, more clothing, all of that, so that we've got it to last. The nice thing is each time one of those cargo vehicle comes up, they usually have a little bin of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Wow. Okay.
And crazy stuff that you wouldn't imagine that you'd enjoy, but up there it's just treat. So like just a big raw onion.
Yeah, really.
And on orbit you'll eat it like an apple.
No kidding.
Yeah, just because it's so different than any other flavor you've got up there, and it just raw onion just is awesome, or big heads of garlic.
Wow.
And then space has a smell.
I was going to say, I bet that capsule would reek at times.
And luckily the systems scrub everything out pretty good.
Right.
But, fruits and vegetables, the fresh fruits, those were a nice treat. But you don't get much of it, and you stretch it out as long as you can.
You know what you need to do now, man, is make like an astronaut cookbook.
Oh, trust me, there are some interesting creations you come up with up there trying to keep it interesting.
I bet. I mean, just thinking of the things that I used to make in college, like Cheese Whiz sandwiches and things like that. 100 different ways to cook ramen. But, you got a little creative up there. So besides the cookbook, now, do you think you would ever actually be part of an autobiography? I mean, quite a story already. But, this is like just your second chapter in here.
Yeah, I'm kind of my least favorite subject to talk about.
Really? Okay.
So the idea of writing a book about myself, I don't see the audience out there. I don't know.
Yeah, but you have to understand the way that the public looks at you like a true American hero. Just so proud of the fact that you're an Academy grad, and there's so much to your story that.
Yeah, I understand. It's still a little hard to soak in, though.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm used to dealing with rock stars all the time. They'll go on and on and on about themselves, but dealing with military personnel, very, very different. What did you really learn at USAFA back in the day that you truly still apply in your daily life?
There is so much
Sure.
on so many levels, right? But ultimately, it's just the things that make you who you are, that built your character. it goes back to core values, integrity and service and excellence, and you can translate those words into others, like honesty and I can trust you,
Sure.
and service is about teamwork, and excellence is just trying hard, and you continually try to translate those, but they're applicable throughout your entire life. And if you take those and then build on them, there's just the snowball effect of the opportunities that open up for you. And so that's the bedrock that everything is built on.
And it's quite a foundation.
Yeah.
I mean, the type of cadet that comes to the academy in the first place is a unique individual. But be able to take those things and carry on throughout your course of life is pretty incredible.
Well, when you show up and you run it, you hop into Beast and you get broke down. I mean, the whole idea is let's break you down
Yeah.
and build you back up. And then the whole intent of that is just to show you the power of those core
bet.
values. And it gives you an environment where you can exercise them, and you can see, hey, this stuff is real.
Yeah, yeah. When you came to the academy, was it always your goal to be part of NASA? Did you want to be a pilot initially and said, you know what, maybe this NASA thing is going to work out?
When I came here, I wanted to be an astronaut. It had always been a childhood dream. Wanted to be a pilot and fly fighters and do kind of that stereotypical image of what it takes to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
And wasn't pilot qualified. Didn't graduate as a pilot.
Okay.
I went into acquisitions and worked in a research lab. And so, if anything, I hope I'm an example for everybody out there that hey, just because the path you think you need to take
Right.
in order to get to your dream isn't available, doesn't mean there's not a path.
That's so well put, man. You graduated in '98.
Yep.
You were considered the NASA astronaut class of 2013.
Yep.
I just saw in the news here not long ago they announced the new NASA class of 2020, and Raja,
Yes.
who is a former Academy grad.
Yes.
He's going to be part of that. Are they going to? Do you think is this the class that may be venturing towards Mars?
Yeah, so this is Artemis is the new program, right?
Okay.
So Artemis, and the whole purpose behind Artemis is to get us to Mars.
Okay.
So to do that, Artemis is going to take us to the moon, and in 2024 we're trying to put feet on the ground on the moon.
Wow.
Put the first woman on the moon.
Wow.
And the way we're doing that is the approach we're taking is trying to build out this proving ground so that we can test out all the things we need to test out, all that infrastructure. How are we going to shelter? How are we going to provision? How are we going to land? How are we going to do maintenance? All these things that we need to figure out how to do, we can do them on the moon. When if something goes wrong, we're only a few days away from home.
I see.
Whereas if I try to do it on the surface of Mars, it's like a 9-month trip.
Right.
And that's even if the planets line up. You may have to wait a year before the planets line
okay.
up. So we need to figure it out here close to home before we start venturing out into the deep.
You bet. Now, obviously, something that everybody is talking about lately is the new Space Force. And, Space Command has been around since, the 80s? I know it was a hub here in Colorado Springs at Peterson. I mean, this has kind of been the area.
Yeah, so the Front Range is the nexus for space. Really. Yeah.
And so now what's the difference between the old Space Command and the new Space Force?
Yeah, so, there are some differences. And so it gets into kind of the technicalities of how we actually organize all the services. So there's U.S. Space Command, which is the combatant command.
Okay.
And then there's the Space Force, which is akin to the Air Force.
I see.
It is going to train and equip. It's going to try to provision to make everything available so that the combatant command, which is U.S. Space Command, can use all of that to perform the mission.
I see.
And so you've got a part that's in the planning and getting everything ready, and then you got a part that's actually out there doing the job.
Is that something you're going to be part of, do you think?
Yeah, so
there's rumors.
Yeah, so there's opportunities there for sure. But I think we need to think about what NASA does versus what the Space Force does. And
I see.
So I am an Air Force officer, so
Okay.
I'm in the Air Force right now, but I'm working at NASA
I see.
through an agreement between the agencies. And so I'm working for NASA. NASA's mission is different than the Space Force. But I have to highlight that, we're here on the Front Range. There are so many things that the Front Range does, the Space Force provides, that protects us up there,
Yeah.
that supports us up there, so that we can even do that human exploration mission. So they're necessary. So we're different from the Space Force, but we depend on them for so much. We depend on them for GPS signals so
Sure.
that we know. Can you believe it? It's just like your car.
Yeah.
The space station needs GPS to know where it's at and how it's oriented. We need the Space Force to track all the debris that's got so congested up there to try to keep us from running into it with the space station. And if there's going to be a collision, they can tell us in advance and we'll move out of the way. So they protect us.
How much junk is actually floating around up there? I mean, if you guys really got to have somebody help navigate you through it, it's quite a junk field, huh?
There is a lot of stuff up there, and so I got the chance to do 3 spacewalks while I was up there.
Wow.
Magical experiences. And when it comes down to debris, I'm hand over hand on handrails, looking at places where little specks of debris have drilled holes through the handrails as we've run into them.
Wow.
Because up there, you're going 17,000 miles an hour. And so can you imagine a head-to-head impact with something going 17,000 miles an hour? The destructive power is amazing. We can't track those little things.
No.
We can track the big things. And so that's what the ground does. And they track those big things, and then they help us move out of the way.
Such an incredible opportunity to talk to you, Nick. You have seen so many things. Truly an American hero. We appreciate all your time, all your efforts. So proud of you as being part of USAFA, but also very proud of you for your achievements in space and the Jabara Award, sir. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today.
Yeah, thank you again, Nick.